r/AskReddit. What do you wish you had in high school that kids have today? An environment in which being smart is a good thing and nerdy is not a bad thing. It still boggles my mind how mainstream media such as anime and superheroes, hell, even video games, are now. When I was in high school, liking those things still made you a bit of an outcast. Anime is still a very fine line. If you're too vocal and public about anime, you become the school weeb. If you're into anime, but still have a life outside of it, then you're all good. When I went to school, if you knew the name of even one anime, your only hope for friends was the weird kid obsessed with wolves. Hiding your power level was an absolute must. My son is in his high school's robotics team. They have tons of tools to build robots to compete, including a big machine that cuts sheets of metal based on what digital file you send it. I'd have loved to have had that. When I was in high school, the most advanced tool I had access to was a dot matrix printer. Yeah, this. I mentor a first robotics team, and this is exactly what I would have wanted in high school. I was a total geek who was terrified of public speaking. Robotics would have given me a chance to use my skills and interests instead of hiding them, make friends with like-minded people, and learn to communicate better. My high school had all kinds of sports teams and music clubs and drama and debate clubs and such, but if you were a nerdy kid like me, your options were chess club. Robotics turned me into a full human. Public speaking, working with others, and in general being out of my shell. Not just on the teams, but as a referee and head referee. One of the best experiences in my life. The internet. I was able to use the internet for a project during my senior year. Really made me wish I'd had it my whole life. This project usually took 3 months, but I had it done in a week, because most of that time was normally spent fact finding. As someone who grew up with the internet, I feel I take it for granted now. As somebody who grew up as the internet grew up, I know I take it for granted now. My dad has been a programmer for over 25 years, and he doesn't remember how he did his job before Google. MP3 players / Spotify and the like. I had to carry around my Discman on my long walk home from school. Even with anti-skip, it would still buffer every now and then. Don't get me started on batteries too. Nowadays it's so easy to listen to anything at any time. Back then it wasn't. I'm still discovering new music from 20+ years ago thanks to Spotify. So much easier than sitting next to the radio with your finger on the record button, so you could capture your favorite songs on cassette tape. Are the days of taping Radio 1 charts on a Sunday. Class of 1984, a word processing program. I cannot write or type for shit. I have dysgraphia. If I could have been able to get words on paper as easily as we can do now, who knows how my life might have turned out. This is something I'll never ever take for granted. I hate online textbooks, online grammar books, and Dropbox assignments, but I really do love being able to type up assignments. I find online textbooks useful, especially when using Ctrl+F to find quotes and excerpts. I spent 12 years explaining my son's dysgraphia to his special education teachers. It was a nightmare, and it's still a nightmare when he has to fill out new applications and CVs pretty much any form. They had computers other kids could use. He was class of 2011, but they didn't know what dysgraphia was, so he didn't get one. He used one at home, but he had to handwrite all his papers. I can't imagine what you went through back then, when dyslexia was still being recognized as just lazy. Digital photography. I have so few pictures of friends and good times we had during high school because no one carried around a camera and bothered to get film developed. Of the ones we did have, most are long gone with no negatives to get them reproduced. I was that annoying girl that brought her Canon DSLR with her every day and kept filming and shooting without consent. Don't know how and why I kept doing it, even though everyone hated it, but now people are contacting me because they want to see photos from when they were teenagers. Programming classes. I seem to have just missed that after I graduated. I took my first high school programming class in spring of 1978. I went to the same high school as my dad. He did a programming class back in the 70s. From 2000 until a few years ago all the ed was pretty much about using Microsoft Office, Word, Excel etc. They started teaching programming again a few years ago. I just find it funny how they stopped for so long. I'm doing a degree in CS, so it would have been nice to have been introduced to it much sooner. I find it really interesting. Khan Academy. It would have been cool to have access to Khan Academy when I went to school. It's still cool to have access to it today outside of school. The stuff you can learn on there is insane. Probably cell phones. The ability to call or text an individual to find out where they are was a revolution, but wasn't widespread until I was in college. Used to have to call their parents' house and hope they were there. The idea that once you left the house you were just in a communication black hole until you returned, or actively called someone from a payphone is a big change from the modern day. You had to make plans the day or morning before, and then if anything happened to derail those plans then whole thing was just a failure. I remember making the collect call, and instead of my name I'd say pick me up real quick, and after the message played my mom would declead the charges, and know to pick me up. AAH, those were the days. Electricity. Username checks out. So this isn't a tangible thing I wish I had, but I have a 14-year-old son and the one thing that I really admire about him and his entire friend group is that they are so open with their feelings with one another. It sounds cheesy, but it seems like kids in this current generation are much more okay with letting each other know they care. There's just an openness with them all that I find refreshing. It's something that I didn't experience in my sad goth staring out the window late 90s high school days, and I really love it about all those kids. I teach high school age drumline kids, mostly boys, and I'm elated to say that I agree, and it's definitely this generation. I'm in college as an older person ATM, and honestly, I wish I had the social dynamics lol. I was eating lunch, and I heard two guys talking to each other, and he was showing his friend something on his phone, and he was like, bro, she's beautiful, I can totally see you guys together. And it seemed to make the other guy really happy. I don't know if he was maybe feeling insecure about how he looks, or whatever. But you could tell it meant a bit to him. It just seems less cliquey. Less every man for themselves. I'm sure there's plenty of assholes, obviously. But just generally kids seem really nice and smart these days. A while ago someone in high school posted on here that being different means interesting and therefore cool. That's just mind blowing compared to my high school time. Personally, having come from high school in the 90s, when we did have internet, but it was more of a novelty, Wikipedia. Wikipedia is one of the greatest repositories of human knowledge and you can see the sources. It would have been amazing for it to have been built out to where it is now, while I was in high school. Better building and facilities. When I was at school the place was falling apart, and a couple of years after I left they knocked it down and rebuilt it with a state-of-the-art media center and technology and design department with 3D printers and SolidWorks CAD workstations. Most high schools are still falling apart. I agree, all the bullet holes really degrade schools' structural integrity pretty fast. MacUp tutorials on YouTube. These kids these days have no idea how good they have it. I was looking like an orange-faced, pale neck, raccoon-eyed mess. Yet teenagers are just skipping that whole shitty MacUp period between like 13 to 16 because of YouTube. It sounds corny, but Reddit. I first turned to Reddit when I was in college in 2014 because I had a weird thing going on in my dating life that I couldn't bother anyone else with in real life. Reddit advised me, and it really helped. Sometimes you just need to talk to strangers, as weird as that may sound. If I had known about Reddit in high school, I would have had some help or peace of mind figuring out my very confusing and sheltered high school years. A USB drive. If my project file size was too big, I had to carry like 5 floppy disks to school and spend entire homeroom and half of first period printing. I'm in high school and I've never seen anyone use a flash drive. Everyone just uses Google Drive because it's not a physical thing you can lose.